Hi guys, it's Leslie. I'm in my backyard and I thought it'd be fun to say hi from outside. I'm not sure if everybody gets to have a little snow in their life, but today is a beautiful day and I thought I'd share some of my weather with you. And also we have a theme of white in my project today because we are making the Ivory Tower from my NeverEnding Story series. This is a really fun video because it was a lot of imagination. I kind of just went from my own idea of what I think the Ivory Tower would look like in my imagination. So this was a really fun project to do, and I hope you guys enjoy. I got a new mat for Christmas, and I'm going to do my best to keep this one clean. Let's cover it with some canvas cloth. And then I'm going to make the diorama box. This I cut out on my laser cutter, and then I'm just going to paint a very simple sunset scene on the wood, just making sure I line up the sides and the back of the box. What I'm making here is the background for the scene. I want kind of a flower gate-like kind of wall in the background, and I cut out some of these flower shapes using my laser cutter, and I used wood and cereal boxes, and then I'm just painting everything white. I got my airbrush out for easy painting. So everything in this scene is going to be basically a white color. I have ivory, white, off-white. It's a very white scene, but this is the look I'm going for. He came to a second smaller gate. Then there was a long, narrow stairway, which took him to a garden where everything, trees, flowers, and animals, was carved from ivory. Crawling on all fours, he crossed several arched bridges without railings, which led him to a third gate, the smallest of all. He dragged himself through it on his belly, and slowly raising his eyes, saw a dome-shaped hall of gleaming white ivory, and on top of it, the Magnolia Pavilion. All right, so here I am just adding the little paper flowers to the gate. All right, we're gonna make the base. Wood glue. This is why I don't feel myself doing this. Now I'm going to start working on the Magnolia Pavilion, and I'm going to be making this out of polymer clay. Time to condition some clay. This is going to take a bit. I am using a mixture of cos clay, which is a clay that's still flexible after it's been baked, and super sculpey. Right, guys. We have some workable clay. So now I'm making the center of the magnolia flower. This is where the childlike Empress lives. And I want this to be hollow. So I am putting tinfoil in the middle. And then after I bake it, I'm going to dig that tinfoil out. And this is way I can add lights to this area. Using one of my clay texture tools and just adding a little texture to the flower. And now it's baked and I dug that tinfoil out. Okay, we have this piece. It looks really weird. I'm gonna say trust the process. I added a glass cabochon. I did this off camera because it was like tricky trying to figure it out. And this is gonna have lights in it. So eventually cleaned up, this is the look. Now it's time to make
some petals.
So I want my petals to look natural and organic, so I am just freehand cutting these petals out. I wanted my petals to have that vein-like texture that the flowers have, so I decided to make my own texture tool. So I'm just drawing some lines into this clay, and then I'm going to go ahead and bake it, and then I can use this to press some texture into my petals. It worked out really good. So if you need your own texture tool, just make it yourself.
I wonder if this is the cosplay, excuse me. This is the cosplay. So I'm wondering if it's going to be too floppy. I did, when I baked this, it's not. So I think this one's going to be okay, but I might have to do a sample and check it out first. But here's a petal. And let's see if I can, I'm going to try to round these edges without messing up my lines to my thing, but that's okay. If it does, this is the practice petal. I think is it sideways? No, I think we're good. Everything kept rolling on me, so I thought my table was like slanted all of a sudden.
I decided to use cosplay because I was afraid that these petals were going to be too fragile, and they turn out great. They're not fragile at all. I am just adding a little more texture to my petals and giving them a little shape, and then I'm going to pre-bake this first set of petals just to make sure it holds together, and then I'm going to continue on. I'm going to go ahead and paint this guy just to get, you know, continued feel for what I'm looking for. So we got the beginnings of a flower. I did a couple coats. It's going to need a lot of coats, but I think it's going to go in the direction I want it to go. So I'm super excited. So let's continue. So now I want to add some lights to the back of my diorama so it appears as if the sun is setting. I want the Magnolia Pavilion to be raised up, so here's a little piece I'm adding. This makes a fantastic texture, sand, glue, and paint. I use this in my Santa Cottage project that I just worked on. I'm going to layer this on the floor and basically over a lot of the materials I add.
So guys, I did this off camera because it was a little precarious, but this is the basic layout that I want. I want these lights to show. All right. Yay. Okay. All right. Back to my...
So I'm actually using faux magnolia leaves that I'm going to layer that sand mixture over to give them a stone-like appearance. I wanted a raised, like, platformish type area just to have levels in my build. This is a frozen food container. When making your dioramas, just use what you have on hand. There's so many shapes of recycled materials that you already have that you can just use in your builds. I'm adding many coats of white and ivory to everything. I have a ton of faux flowers, so I'm just going to repurpose these in my diorama. I'm going to either use the shape they already have or change them into a new shape. I'm adding that sand mixture all over the flowers as well, just to get that appearance that maybe they're made out of stone. I am now attaching the Magnolia Pavilion. This is a little tricky because I have to thread the lights in the correct area. I added a little hot glue and I glued it right in place. So in most of my projects, I have some sort of tree. And I made these trees using wire, tissue, and cotton batting. And now I'm going to show you how I made those. I used varying widths, width gauges. I use varying gauges of wire, and that was just my choice. You don't have to use different gauges, but I did. And then I'm going to twist all these wires together with my handy dandy pliers. And then at this time, you could also add branches. You could use clump foliage to make the top of your tree, but I only have green clump foliage. That is a tricky word. I only have green, and I wanted these to be white, and I didn't know how many coats of white paint I would need to turn that green into white. But I had tons of cotton batting, so that is what I'm using.
Glue and paint mixed together. Leave as is and just paint, or you can do this.
So just glue that tissue paper right to your wire, and it gives a nice cool texture. It already has a cool texture, but it kind of adds something. It's up to you in this process. Some people like that wired look. I like it to look a little less wire-like, so I am using the tissue paper to add to it. They're whimsical trees anyways. They're not real trees.
This is where I like to get messy. You can delicately go in with a paintbrush, glue too, like that, or you can get messy. Plop on, and it's set aside to dry. Add as much cotton as you want.
And there you have fun, whimsical trees. Here are some cool little animals my husband printed on his 3D printer. This is from Thingiverse. I wanted some animal statues in my courtyard, so I am placing these guys all around the courtyard. It also gives a little bit of perspective of size and some fun Easter eggs to look for. Since everything is going to be white, you kind of have to look around to see what you can find. So this is another way you can make teeny miniature flowers. If you have any type of hole punch that makes like floral designs, you can just use the little bits and design your own flowers out of paper. And I just made these teeny little flowers. I wanted my courtyard to have a teeny little stone path, so I peeled these 8 cartons in half to reduce thickness, and then I cut them up and added a little stone path throughout the courtyard. So I'm adding this light brown wash to different areas of the diorama just to bring out some of the textures, and then I'm going to go over some of that again with a white or ivory dry brush to kind of blend it all together. I feel like this brings out some of the shadowing. It's one of those little things that you might not notice, but if you look closely, I think you can see that there's like texture. I wanted to add some more lighting to the courtyard. So what I did was I drilled holes underneath my diorama where I added fairy lights, and then I covered those lights with a little dab of hot glue and then some cabochon pearl-like beads, and that just kind of gave it a funky light look. And to get rid of any hot glue strands, I just had my hairdryer on a heat setting and I melted those strands away. I'm adding some final flowers to my diorama, and then I'm going to add a little glitter because a magical land needs some glitter. And so I just add some glitter to the trees and the walkway. And then I finally glue the cover in place and decide this project is done. Thanks for watching, everybody. I think I'm going to be working on the bookstore next. It's a little out of place, but that's my plan. Check out the final results, and I'll see you next time.